Welcome back to Haunted History, the only show where dead historical figures rise from the grave to argue about the messes we still haven't cleaned up.
Here, ghosts don't just haunt battlefields, they haunt debates. Every episode, we resurrect the past's biggest names to face off over today's most controversial questions.
From revolutions to recessions, we drag history's heaviest hitters back into the ring. No censorship, no filters, just facts, philosophy, and full-blown feuds.
And tonight, we're diving into one of America's most divisive disasters, the Vietnam War.
Was it a righteous fight against communism or a failure of foreign policy?
Tonight, we will summon two icons to settle this, who have very different views.
So, the producer wants to do Vietnam.
Who the are we supposed to invite for Vietnam?
What about Harriet Tubman?
I don't think she had a lot to do with foreign policy. Did she?
Then what type of people do we need?
Like someone who's very opinionated on foreign affairs.
Like Washington?
Wait, yeah, exactly, Washington.
Oh, who else?
Trump?
He's not dead yet.
Oh. Let me think. Wasn't Teddy Roosevelt super imperialistic?
Yeah, this should work.
Okay, here it goes. I was dreaming of crossing the Delaware. What a victory. Who are you? Who has awoken me from my slumber?
I had a strange dream that they named the stuffed bear after me. So weird. Where am I?
President Roosevelt, General Washington. The question is simple. Was America's presence in Vietnam justified? You'll need a moment. History has updated since your time.
Who's Vietnam?
Where are we? No idea.
What is that?
Do you think maybe I'm supposed to click this?
I'm not really sure, but like...
When the U.S. unleashes the fire and fury of its modern arsenal in the Vietnam War, it's confident in its military might and the righteousness of its anti-communist cause. But it soon finds itself struggling with an underestimated enemy, a widening war, and political turmoil at home. North Vietnam, though, is also confident. They've been fighting for an independent and unified Vietnam for decades. The Americans and their allies are just the latest opponents in Ho Chi Minh's long struggle, as both sides clash in the jungles of...
So, are these books?
I think we're supposed to use them to...
Prepare for the debate?
Yeah.
Alright, then... My fellow Americans, in 1796, I warned against foreign entanglements in my farewell address. Permanent alliances would drag the U.S. into unnecessary wars, threaten national unity, and undermine its independence. Vietnam wasn't for liberty, it was fear dressed as fatigues. We abandoned restraint for paranoia about communism. And that paranoia, my friends, is not policy. Remember, a republic's strength lies not in its force, but in its restraint.
Speak softly and carry a big stick. The Soviets weren't sending postcards, they were spreading ideology. Vietnam was about honor, courage, backbone. We didn't stumble in, we stood up.
Big stick diplomacy refers to President Theodore Roosevelt's foreign policy philosophy. Speak softly and carry a big stick. You will go far. It emphasized peaceful negotiation backed by the threat of strong military force. This approach shaped later U.S. interventions, including the Vietnam War, where military force was used to contain the spread of communism. The U.S. saw Vietnam as a test of strength and credibility, echoing Roosevelt's belief in active global leadership.
Tea or coffee, Mr. Roosevelt?
Coffee, please.
Oh. Thank you.
I didn't come back from the dead to play footsie with neutrality. We had a red menace. It wasn't just a color, it was a contagion.
Domino theory? Sounds like gambling with lives. We sent 500,000 troops for what? Agent Orange? The My Lai massacre? Protesters beaten in the streets. The domino theory was the belief that if one country fell to communism, neighboring countries would quickly follow, like a row of falling dominoes. This idea drove much of the U.S. Cold War policy, especially in Southeast Asia. In Vietnam, American leaders feared that losing the country to communism would lead to a chain reaction across Laos, Cambodia, and beyond.
Speculation? Read NSC 68. The Cold War wasn't hypothetical. It was heating up faster than your 4th of July grill. Korea, Berlin, we had to act.
NSC 68 was a top-secret U.S. government document written in 1950 that outlined a strategy to contain the spread of communism during the Cold War. It called for a massive buildup of U.S. military power to counter the Soviet threat globally. This policy became a key justification for American involvement in conflicts like the Korea and Vietnam Wars.
You think being cautious means being weak, but I call it wisdom. I warned against entangling alliances for a reason. The Vietnam War wasn't about defending freedom, it was about defending our ego. It wasn't a war of necessity, but a war of insecurity, waged not with clarity, but with confusion. We trade principles for paranoia.
You think standing for something means standing still. The Truman Doctrine made it clear. When freedom is under threat, we step up, not with fear, but with resolve. Containment wasn't a panic move, it was a promise that we would not watch tyranny spread like wildfire while we played the fiddle of neutrality.
Every village we torched, every life we shattered. We didn't just lose battles, we lost our moral compass. Even the Tet Offensive, a so-called victory, revealed a truth we couldn't bomb away. We had lost the truth of people. At home and abroad, we were no longer liberators. We were occupiers with a flag.
Tet may have been a military failure in the North, but the press turned it into a public failure for us. Strategy didn't fail, perception did. The so-called credibility gap wasn't about lies, it was about losing control of the story. We let the headlines win a war the enemy couldn't.
Or maybe, just maybe, the headlines were finally honest. When generals parade success while citizens witness chaos, belief collapses. That gap became a canyon, and no amount of firepower can bridge lost faith.
So what then? We govern by Gallup now? War isn't a popularity contest. Victory takes grit, not approval ratings. You can't beat communism with caution tape and televised tears.
And yet you can't win by bulldozing your own soul. You call it grit, I call it blind force. Democracy isn't forged by silencing its people. It thrives, it listens, stumbles when it ignores, and collapses when it forgets who it's fighting for.
Get it, girl?
You're so obsessed with the ghosts of the past that you can't see the fire in front of you. This wasn't some powdered wig parley. This was ideological warfare. Communism wasn't knocking politely. It was barging in with tanks. We didn't have the luxury of waiting.
What are you doing? This man keeps yelling about communism like it personally insulted his mustache. I swear, I'd rather cross the Delaware River barefoot in January than sit through another Cold War monologue. And what did we get for rushing in? 58,000 flags folded, countless civilians dead, and a nation more divided than when we began. That's not heroism, Teddy. That's hubris with a helmet on.
We didn't lose in the jungle. We lost in the halls of Congress and in the living rooms of America. The soldiers fought with honor, but the nation lost its nerve. We didn't give up on war. We gave up on ourselves.
No, we gave up on an illusion. A war without a goal is a trench without an exit. You can draft 1,000,000 men, but without purpose they march in circles. And the people, they saw the futility long before the politicians did.
The goal was freedom, containment, honor. If we let hardship dictate when we quit, then we hand victory to every tyrant with a bigger army and a louder voice.
And if we keep mistaking military might for moral right, we become the very force we sought to resist. Liberty isn't exported at gunpoint, it's earned by example.
I fought in the Spanish-American War, led men uphill against entrenched machine guns. That's bravery. You rode across a river.
Yes, and we won the war. Ever try winning one of those, Teddy?
We didn't lose Vietnam. We lost Congress, the funding, the public support. The soldiers did their jobs with honor. Washington, D.C. didn't.
Teddy, We dropped more bombs on Southeast Asia than we did in World War II. If that's honor, I will stick to dignity.
You think dignity wins wars? No, sir. Force, resolve, and a little chaos. That's how you get things done.
Huh?
And yet somehow, none of that helped in the jungle, huh?
Jungle warfare is complicated. You wouldn't understand. You wore powdered wigs into battle.
Oh my god.
And yet I still founded the country you're yelling in! Wars must be fought with a cause, clarity, and constitution. Vietnam had none. We had democracy abroad and at home.
History punishes hesitation. We stood up. We bled. We tried. Better to fight and fail than to cower and collapse.
Who won? Still debatable. But if volume equaled victory, Washington would have single-handedly nuked the Cold War.
I still think he's too rambunctious.
I still think he yells too much.
I mean, at least we weren't born in whatever this century is.
In the jungle. Huh? That we couldn't.
We'd like to move it.